3, hit it!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And if you like the ideas that I share in these weekly podcasts, I encourage you to check out the free basic course in the Inside Out Understanding, which you get at michaelneill.org/basic course. And the title for this week's episode, and in fact the content for this week's episode, was sparked by a comment by one of my students stroke colleagues in the Inside Out Understanding, Jed Welch. And he was talking about, he and his wife, Nikki, do a lot of work with businesses. They have a company called Natural High Performance. And one of the ways that they explain what they do to the companies that they work with is they say every person has a genius and an asshole in them. And in most companies, the asshole gets more airtime. And so what we do is we talk to the genius. And when the asshole gets in the way, we politely ask them to leave or shove them out of the way, so we can go back to talking to the genius. And the more time we spend talking to the genius, the more often the genius is the one that shows up to work. And when the genius shows up to work, things tend to go a hell of a lot better without anything else changing. And I loved it as a metaphor, both because it's kind of funny, but also because it really does speak to the nature of human beings. Is we're all kind of a lovable mess. Like we all have moments where we are petty and a bit stupid and caught up and it's like we're dancing blindfolded and drunk at the edge of a cliff. And it's not surprising that when we're doing that, things go badly. But we also all have moments where we surprise ourselves with how capable we are. And it's often, not always, but it's often in crisis. Often very ordinary people do extraordinary things when they have to, when the chips are down, when there's a disaster. And they will often say, I never thought that I would do that. I'm not a hero. I don't even know why I did what I did. Everybody has experiences of just suddenly being completely stuck with something and completely overwhelmed, and then in a moment of insight, sometimes when driving, sometimes in the shower, sometimes even in the middle of an argument or a debate, they just get a flash of insight and they know what to do. There are all sorts of amazing inventions and advances in science that are credited to dreams, where somebody will be asleep, but in their dream, they'll dream the solution to a problem. The development of the sewing machine, actually, Elias Howe was, his explanation. He had a dream, and he was, I think in the dream he was being attacked by cannibals, and he noticed that the spears that they were threatening him with had holes in the tips, and he suddenly realized, the obstacle in the sewing machine was that they couldn't find a way. If you threaded the needle the way you do it when you manually sew, the machine couldn't do it. But if you threaded it at the tip, suddenly the sewing machine could work. And lo and behold, there it was. Thomas Edison used to try and trick his body into a state of semi-sleep because he found the genius would emerge. And he would reportedly sit in a chair with a spoon in his hand, and he'd drift off to sleep. And there would be a moment where he'd fall asleep, and when the spoon hit the ground, he'd wake up. And in that tiny gap, often his best ideas for inventions would come. And regardless of how you've learned to access the genius, whether putting yourself under incredible pressure, being in a moment of crisis, or tricking your body, or falling asleep, or another very common way is to give up. The number of times where people report to me that it was just after they gave up on something that suddenly it started to work, or they got the key idea or insight that they needed. But we all have that capacity for genius in us. And we can all be assholes. And if we don't get caught up in justifying our assholery, but we kind of embrace it. It's like, yeah, you know what? Sometimes I'm not very nice, and sometimes I'm really thick, and sometimes I'm really messy, and none of that negates the fact that the intelligent energy of life flows through me at all times. And the same genius that was behind every great development in human history is inside you. And so if you want to try this out for yourself, there are two little experiments I can recommend to you. One is, when you're talking with others, when you're talking with your kids, talk to the genius, not the asshole. Recognize that from time to time the asshole will show up. But you don't have to engage with them, because the genius is sitting right alongside them. And if you keep talking to the genius, the genius starts to show up more. Another way of talking about this that's much more spiritually acceptable and sounds much nicer is the spiritual teacher Sid Banks used to say, I don't talk to people's minds. I talk to their souls. And when I talk to their souls long enough, their souls kind of stick around. It's the same idea. It's the same truth expressed in a different way. And if you want to experience more of it for yourself, you don't have to stop being a jerk. Just if you decide you want to be the genius, just notice when you're not being that. And very quickly, all that kind of asshole thinking will start to fall away. And the intelligence of life through you will emerge more and more and more. Have fun, learn heaps, happy exploring, and I'll talk with you soon.